Welcome, everybody, to From Cameras to Couches. This is our weekly highlight. We've been a little lacking in dedication to our schedule here lately, so we're back on track with this one. Just to go off track this weekend, but we're doing a good one this week. We're super pumped for this one.
I'm so excited.
It's going to be great. So, you know me, I'm Zach Davis.
Hi, I'm Emmy Davis.
We're just wondering what time exactly is Santori time? Lost in Translation
relaxing
coming
time.
Up next. It's a good time. So yeah, we're going to be covering Sofia Coppola's sophomore film, Lost in Translation, which is a favorite here in this household.
It is.
I really love this movie. Emily loves it more. There's nothing more that I can say than that.
I only saw this movie. I really started obsessing over Sofia Coppola after Priscilla came out. Like, this is super embarrassing.
I remember when we went and saw Priscilla together. That was
this is like super embarrassing.
Bro, this is our blind spots and growth.
No, I know, but like I'm just kind of like showing a little bit of my
youth.
my naivete in the film world. But like last year when Priscilla came out, I remember sending the trailer to Zach and saying, I really want to go see this. I think that it's directed by the guy who did The Godfather's daughter. And he goes, yeah, Sofia Coppola. And I was like, oh. And now she's my favorite director.
She's epic.
That being said, I never watched any of her stuff until after Priscilla came out, but Lost in Translation is one that I watched this year, and I've rewatched it like 5 times this year.
The real question is, will you be getting the Sofia Coppola mug that is retailing for, I believe, $700?
No, I just want her book.
Which book is that? Is that
she has the Archives.
Archives, that's it. Yep.
I want the Archives.
Yeah, that's a good coffee table piece right there. But we're not talking about coffee tables. We're talking about whiskey in Tokyo tonight. So let's move into this. Let's talk a little bit about it before we move into the synopsis. So this is Sofia Coppola's sophomore film, released in 2003, following her 1999 movie The Virgin Suicides.
Also a great movie.
Absolute like massive acclaim out the door for this one. It's a deeply personal story to Sofia, and I think that really shines through in both the script and the cast.
Bleeds into every bit of this movie.
Yeah, it's epic enough that it earned her the Best Original Screenplay Oscar, and along with nominations for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor for Bill Murray, which he should have won. I was talking to a friend of mine about this earlier, but Sean Penn and Mystic River, really?
Yeah.
Versus Bill Murray.
He kills it in this movie. I mean, obviously, we'll get into the details later, but like...
I'm not a Mystic River stan. That's all I'm going to say.
He is so funny, and so...
He makes this movie work.
He 100% does. This is like his movie. I mean, obviously, it's Sophia's movie, but like, he just kills it.
He kills it. He loves it. There was actually like a tidbit I was going to say for later.
Don't save it for later. I was going to say there's so much to say about this.
I'm not doing the one that you're thinking of. Oh. But when Sofia was casting Bill in this movie, she knew this movie was not going to get made without him. So
that is the one I was going to do.
When she was fearful of him not showing up to the set, she called Wes Anderson, who had just done Steve Zissou with Bill Murray. And Wes said he's a reliable guy. If he's committed to a project, he'll show up. And
he hadn't even signed a contract.
Yeah, he didn't even sign anything saying that he was actually going to be this movie. It was just a word of mouth kind of thing. And Wes was like, take him at his word. He will be there. And sure enough, he showed up a week before filming. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to blast that out of the gate.
It's okay. But I mean, on that topic, you said Steve Zissou, and I love that little tidbit here on the Lost in Translation DVD bonus features. There's a interview with Sofia Coppola and Bill Murray, and their stance, like they're standing back to back, like arms crossed. It's perfect. But he also obviously like just finished filming Steve Zissou, and he totally has that look about him, and I love it.
Hilarious.
I love it.
I love Steve Zissou. Like it's just
we watched those movies on the same weekend, maybe, or like back-to-back weekends?
I think so. I think we got them both from the library that weekend and just blasted through all of them. And that was when I just turned on that bonus feature clip of them talking, and it is so charming. Like they're truly like just being such fun, exciting people to be around. But yeah, so we've talked it to death at this point. But Bill Murray is the star of this movie, followed closely by
Harris,
a young Scarlett Johansson as Charlotte. Giovanni Ribisi as Charlotte's husband John, and I there's not a whole lot of other like main cast in this movie, but I did throw in Anna Faris as Kelly. Cameron Diaz. Kelly. She's great. She's absolutely great.
Stop talking about all my fun facts.
Okay, we'll move on to the synopsis with that. Okay, so let's just get it out of the way. This movie opens up on a shot of Scarlett Johansson's butt.
It's great.
I'm not complaining. She's wearing like this pair of pink panties and laying in bed.
Peonies.
And why do you do that to me?
I didn't like it.
Peonies.
Peonies.
So that's the opening shot of the film. It has absolutely no relevance to the rest of the film, other than all of the relevance that it has to the rest of the film. But we're not talking about her right now. We're going to move into Bob Harris, who is Bill Murray's character in this movie.
Before we move into Bob Harris, I just want to say that is like the only like overtly sexualized moment. Well,
there's some strippers.
Like of Scarlett Johansson's character, like you definitely like she totally prances around her hotel room like braless and just, of course she's 17, she's showing off what she's got. But yeah. I mean, like they don't. I don't know. Maybe I should redact that. Maybe I don't know.
There are like some sexual situations that people run into throughout this, but it's
for this to be the opening shot. Like it's so. I'm saying like a lot. And it's really bothering me. I'm gonna try to stop. It's not okay. It's not like a Nora where it opens on strippers and you continue with that.
It's not. It's not those a particularly overly sexual, horny movie.
Yes, like it has, that's kind of what I'm saying.
It has a lot of moments in it that are horny and are revolving around sexualization, but they don't like necessarly follow that rubric. I think it's
also like Sofia does this thing where she uses the male gaze, but does the female gaze over it, and she does it so lesbians. Wonderfully. Huh?
They're called lesbians.
Well, female. Okay. Moving on. Now we can talk about Bob because.
Yeah, so let's talk about Bob now. So Bob is this fallen star of an actor, had some massive successes in films in the 70s. A lot of people know him for his previous work, and he's traveling to Tokyo to shoot a whiskey commercial, a Japanese
Suntory
whiskey commercial. He's greeted by jet lag, insomnia, and some less than personable crew who make his trip immediately feel completely distanced and confusing.
I mean, they're just it's culture shock.
Yeah, it's
he's coming in and these Asian people are greeting him and he's exhausted and they're like showering him with gifts and affection and they're so excited to be meeting him and he's just like, I want to go.
It immediately becomes like the framework of the movie is just like being confused and distanced and not feeling like you know anybody around you and the loneliness that causes.
Immediately thrown into like chaos.
Yeah, you just have no connection to anything around you. So yeah, he gets like a mediated call from his wife where she is just completely ambivalent to anything that's going on. He's like almost screaming for help because he's so lonely and he's so just not overwhelmed. And she's like, hey, what color do you want the carpet to be? It's just really interesting. So he in turn is just searching. Like he's just searching for anything that he can hold on to. He's sitting at the hotel bar all evening. He can't sleep. And he's just on the hunt. So on the other hand, we'll move into Scarlett Johansson's character. Charlotte is the wife. She's a college graduate and the wife of John, a photographer. And John is a celebrity photographer who's on a job in Tokyo and is just spending all of his time dedicated to the job.
He just basically abandons her in the hotel.
Yeah, he's paying no mind to her. And like whenever they show up, he's kind of just taking it as a given that he doesn't have to develop their relationship any further. So he chooses not to, and he just continues to focus on his work. And he ultimately is a workaholic, but he's just more dedicated to his craft and his job than he is to anything that could be going on.
He doesn't really care for Charlotte. You can tell.
So Charlotte is spending like all of her time in Tokyo alone. Charlotte continues to experience like a crisis of identity throughout the opening hours of this movie and
hours.
Well, hour. And she doesn't really know what she wants her adult life to be. So as John continues to be absent or more enthusiastic with his relationships within his work rather than with her, including a particular scene with Anna Faris's character, where she meets John in the lobby, and she's just like, "Oh my God, I love your work," and she's just such an obnoxious blonde.
They work together. That's what it is.
Yeah. She
works on that karate movie. She's
oh, that's
like,
right. Yeah. Oh my God. It's insufferable. Hey, you know what? Happens to the best of us. Clip it. So this leads to Charlotte just like continuously feeling more and more distant from him, and she eventually meets Bob. And they never introduce themselves. They just kind of run into each other several times until they start talking to each other.
32 minutes into the movie is when they first have dialogue together.
And there's no like, "Hi, I'm." It's all.
I have their first interaction among my favorite quotes.
Nice. So we as the audience can immediately tell that these two characters have chemistry together, and they like very quickly become close and bond over their loneliness and just like their desperate reaching out for any kind of connection. Charlotte invites Bob for a night out in Tokyo where he meets some of the locals, and they end up in a karaoke bar, and there's a really great scene where they're all singing karaoke together.
It's fantastic.
Their friendship just continues to deepen, and they have a particularly intimate conversation one night over sake and late night Japanese TV in regards to their marriages, and they just continue to grow closer for the rest of the movie.
And it's so, their relationship is so interesting because they're at such different life
points
stages.
In their life. Like Bob is talking about what it's like to have a kid, and
I mean, he's been married for 25 years and she's been married for like a year, 2 years maybe.
He's like, it doesn't get any easier, I can assure you that.
It's just I love this movie. And just really the way like that their relationship is like mentor mentee, but both directions, and also like romantic, and also
he's got a saucy little mentee.
The way that they're going through such similar things, even though they're at such different life stages, is just fantastic.
So one evening, Bob has a particularly like damning conversation with his wife, where he's at the end of his rope, and even with Charlotte being his companion, he can't really like deal with it anymore. So, in some sense, so he ends up going on like a emotional bender, and ends up ending the night by sleeping with this jazz singer, who Charlotte gets to not meet the next morning, but she hears him singing, or hears her singing, and she's immediately like pissed off by it, and without really an explicit reason why, but there's just like this. You can feel it as the audience. You're like, oh damn, well this has really screwed things up. So they end up going to lunch later that day, and it's really like funny but sad kind of lunch conversation where they're just starting to finally dig at each other. They're like, okay,
it's the worst lunch.
You're a bastard. But yeah, they end up like getting forced back together by a fire alarm at their hotel, which I guess I forgot to mention, but it's the Park Hyatt in Tokyo,
which is its own character. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, definitely. So yeah, they end up meeting at this fire. I don't know if there's an actual fire or if it's just a drill or what the story is, but they meet up, and they're just like, well, that was the worst lunch, and I'm sorry about that. And Bob reveals that he's leaving the next day. Charlotte says that she's gonna miss him. They share like one last night together at the hotel bar, where Bob questions whether or not he wants to leave or if he wants to stay with her, and they end up like going their separate ways that night after like a really awkward good night where they're trying to figure out if they want to kiss each other, and it's just really, really good stuff. So the following morning, as Bob is making his grand exit, there's goodbyes shared between them in the hotel lobby, and it's immediately like, okay, that can't be everything. So as Bob is driving to the airport, or riding to the airport, he's being driven to the airport, he sees her in a crowd and stops the car and gets out of the car to have an actual goodbye with her, which he does, and he says something completely inaudible. He runs up to her, he quickly walks up to her and gives her a big hug and tells her something that the audience can't hear, and then
whispers it to her,
and then gives her a kiss. And then they go their separate ways. Bob is seen driving out of the city, finally with like an actual smile on his face, and then there's just like a couple really good shots of Tokyo, and that's the end of the movie. Yay!
It's so good.
It's really good.
It's so good.
This movie is about like just being disconnected and
isolation and loneliness. And
the quote from Sofia is, "This movie is about being disconnected and looking for moments of connection." And the characters are continuously disoriented and confused and jet lagged and completely out of place in their culture. And in a world of fake director's notes, obnoxious personalities, and foreign language, they are desperate to grab onto a thread of anything real. And they find something so real between the two of them that in their confused and lonely state, it's both a like chemist's dream and Shakespeare's nightmare. They're both desperately trying to hold on to this moment in time and figure out if it's too fantastic to last forever, but they primarily just fear the loneliness that will return once they've separated. Sofia, in the midst of her marriage with Spike Jonze, is very much reflective of her own life throughout the course of this movie. We talked a little bit about John, Charlotte's husband character. This is how she views her husband at this point in time. Just this guy that's preoccupied with his own thing. And Spike Jonze, of course, being a filmmaker in his own right, he's just not present. He's just not there with her. And she calculated and turned a bunch of those feelings into this movie. Spike Jonze later, of course, rebutted with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson's Her, which is an interesting watch, definitely an interesting back-to-back watch just overall. But it's just a really interesting reflection of female identity in particular, but also just not even male depression. I don't feel like it goes that deep. It's just loneliness.
Midlife crisis.
It's loneliness and midlife crisis. So I think that it tackles it really well and very smartly, and it well and truly earned this movie its best original screenplay.
100%. Which something that I want to say about this is that there's not much dialogue to it. There really isn't. It's just a lot of vibes. A lot of beautiful shots and vibes.
Love the vibes of Tokyo. It's a great place.
Oh my gosh. And
it's a really good place.
I have it in one of my favorite scenes, but there's like this whole sequence of Scarlett Johansson exploring Tokyo.
Yeah.
And I'll ramble about it later, but gosh, it's just wonderful.
Do you want to just go ahead and do favorite scenes?
We can do that. Yeah. Cool. I'll ramble about it now.
My favorite is the opening shot. No. My favorite is... One of my favorites right off the top of the movie is Bob getting director's notes from 100%. A Japanese director, and it's being translated between him and this translator, and the translator is like condensing it into like a 3-word note when the director is really saying like 150 syllables worth of stuff. And he's just constantly like cutting the sequence because he doesn't feel it's right. Kato.
And I zoned out a second to kind of glance at my notes, but I don't know if you mentioned the translator that so the director is giving Bob all of these notes, and he is like rambling in Japanese for like 15 to 30 seconds. And then the translator will look at Bob and be like, he said, hold the whiskey glass higher and smile more. Or more serious. That's what it is. More serious. And Bob's like, is that all he said? Like, come on, there's no way.
Can't possibly be it. I can assure you it's not. Japanese directors are notoriously not tough to work with. Precise, I'll say.
This scene also kind of goes...
See below Akira Kurosawa.
Hand in hand with the scene where he's doing the photography shoot. And the director, and this photographer speaks English, and he's telling him, he's like... I can't.
Bro.
I'm sorry. I'm
Spit laughing. It out.
He's like, here's to looking like you kid, like in Casablanca. And he's like, turn at the camera, okay? I just love it. It's so good.
It's so great. It's just
like actually, I think the Casablanca thing is in the other scene, but
yeah, it is. It's
that's when he's
funny.
telling him like James Bond 007.
Yeah,
he's like, well, he drinks martinis, but
it's like more Sean Connery. There's some pretty poorly aged jokes at the expense of Japanese people in this movie, but
very much so.
There are just some funny sequences that come from that. There's one in particular where there's this prostitute that's sent up to Bob's suite that he's staying in, and she's trying to tell him to rip her stockings, but all she can say is lip. Lip my stockings.
Oh, Mr. Bob Harris.
That's a little much. Still just makes for a pretty funny sequence, but just stuff like that.
And the way that Bob deals with it is so funny because he's just
great.
like, "What are you?"
I don't want any part of this.
Like, and she's like falling on the
away.
floor, like waving her legs and like bicycle kicking her legs in the air. It's
really funny
so
circumstance.
Great.
I think it's amazing. My next favorite scene was Bob and Charlotte's first night at the bar. Where they just sit and they're just initially talking to each other and getting to know each other. It's just really, really good. And like I said earlier, they don't introduce themselves to each other. So it's just...
The first thing that she says to him is, "So what are you doing here?"
Yeah.
And he says a couple of things. Taking a break from my wife, forgetting my son's birthday, and getting paid $2 million to endorse a whiskey when I could be doing a play somewhere.
Cheers to that, brother.
At least the whiskey works.
I wish I could get paid $2 million for a whiskey commercial.
Another great, and this is a pretty short little sequence, but this just kind of goes to show the lack of dialogue and just great 30-second clips that add to the movie so well. But there's this scene where Bob is like working out at the hotel and he's running on like this treadmill and he's pushing the buttons and it's going faster and faster and faster and he can't get it to slow down because he's like trying to end his workout and he ends up just like, "Help!" like yelling, and he's like running full sprint. It's so good.
Just jump off, brother. You can do it.
It's so good.
Bill Murray in his prime. This is far from his prime. Who am I kidding?
This is his favorite movie that he's done, though.
It is his favorite movie. He's been on record multiple times about saying that this is his favorite one he's done. And to think, he didn't even sign a piece of paper saying that he was going to do it, and it ended up being his favorite. And probably be my favorite if I got to kiss Scarlett Johansson too.
He ad-libbed that.
Yeah, ad-libbed. My next favorite scene is karaoke. And just them,
oh my
just them
gosh,
doing karaoke. There's so many underlying like stories being told through the songs that everybody's singing.
Yes, I have. When we talk about the soundtrack, I have all the songs listed.
Yeah, it's really like something special, and just against the skyline of Tokyo, it's really great.
And Scarlett Johansson's wearing that like iconic pink bob
wig. Yeah,
it's so good. Oh my gosh, and just fun. What a fun night! And they all go back to the people's place and party later, and that's such a good sequence.
Looks like we're going to Tokyo.
And yeah, we are. This movie is why I want to go to Tokyo.
Yeah, I never would have guessed. I'm sorry. I don't want to jump.
No, you're good. I wanted to talk a little bit about just briefly about the sequence where Charlotte is exploring Tokyo. She is like wearing this peat coat, and she has this little red bag, and she's like jumping across these stepstones. She visits this monastery, and it's just like all so gorgeous. She's walking around the streets with an umbrella. It's so beautifully shot. And
all inspired by Sofia's real trips to Tokyo.
Yes.
Which I can clearly picture her doing a lot of these things.
She went in 1999. I'm kind of spoiling a lot of my fun facts here. But she went in 1999 to do press for the Virgin Suicides. And she stayed at the Park Hyatt, and that's when she was like, "We're filming here. I'm making this movie here."
Fantastic location. My next favorite scene is the awkward lunch after Bob and Charlotte, or Charlotte finds out that Bob slept with a woman the night before, the night before, and they go to lunch together. They're just sitting like digging at each other the entire time. Charlotte is just sitting there with her arms crossed.
It's also one of those hot pot places, which plays into one of the things when they meet up after the fire alarm goes off, and they're like, "That was the worst lunch." And he goes, "Yeah, cooking our own food."
Yeah, who cooks their own food?
Anyways, sorry.
No, that's okay. That was all I wanted to say about that scene. So
great scene. And she's just so moody, and he finally like calls her out. I can't remember. Oh, he's like, "What? Somebody wasn't giving you attention for 5 minutes?" Yeah. And she's just like, What? I thought you were my friend. I thought that you were gonna be on my side no matter what." No, they've known each other for 5 minutes.
Yeah, they're just dicking on each other just for the sake of being pissed off at each other, and it's a really good like couple sequence almost because it's just the nature of the honeymoon phase has ended, and it's pretty funny. And I guess that doesn't really track as well as I'd hoped it was as I was saying it, but because they are far from in a relationship with each other.
But I mean, even with a friendship or something, it's their first fight. Like, and it's the first time that you feel contention with somebody that you previously felt nothing but a bond with.
Yeah, and you know, clearly they've got these conflicted feelings about both of them being married.
And there's like a little bit of betrayal that I keep doing that. Charlotte feels.
Scarlett Johansson. My Sean Connery impression. Not as good as Bill Murray. And I mean, the obvious scene from this is the ending. I mean, the ending is really just fantastic. The last 5 minutes of this movie are sharp. They are pointed. They're like, all right, I'm just really gonna twist the knife into you.
I have a few more that I'd like to talk about. The burgundy carpet scene. One of the things that about Bob's relationship with his wife is we never see her. The only interactions that we see are her on the phone, and you just hear her voice.
Just nagging.
And she's just nagging, and like he's like trying, like you said, crying for help. Like I think at some point he even says to her, like, I just feel like so lonely or so lost or something. I just feel so lost.
He's being as vulnerable as like a man can be. And just like, I need you right now. And she's like, well, you know, I was thinking about this texture for the carpet. She sends him all these carpet samples, and she's like, I like the burgundy one. And he's like, they're all like burgundy maroon. They all look
like
the same.
They all look very similar. And he's just like, great, me too. And then she calls him and she's like, they were out of that carpet. And he's like, I just feel so lost. And she's like, it's just carpet. Just pick another color. And he's like, girl,
it's very much like Man in a Glass Box kind of stuff. I mean, where he's just floating through life surrounded by these four walls that are dictated by his family and dictated by his career and the way that he just kind of moves through life I won't even say like unbolstered, but he just has all these things that keep him separate from the real world, regardless of whether or not he's in Japan or in America.
He talks about like how he would rather be doing a play. Like he's just stuck in what he's doing and who he is, and there's no returning to his passion of acting, and like he can't go to West End and be in a play. He's gone past that because he was also, I think, like, he was
like an action star in the 70s.
Like, yeah.
So he's, you know,
very typecast.
Exactly. As a lot of people were in that phase, it's like, all right, you're the heavy and you're going to remain the heavy for the rest of your career until you do commercials for whiskey. Okay, that about wraps it up for my favorite scenes. Did you have any more that you wanted to add?
I do. There's two. Okay, there's the sushi restaurant scene, which is just a really charming scene between Bob and Charlotte, where they're just hanging out, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, and I stubbed my toe. Let me show it to you," and he like freaks out, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, that thing's black," and he like is joking with the sushi chef, and he's like,
do you make toe?
He's like, you want to cut that off and eat it? Like, it's so funny. And he's, again, Bill Murray is just so excellent in this movie. Also, like, we cannot talk about favorite scenes without discussing the penultimate scene of this movie, which we have not talked about at all. The scene of them lying in bed together and having the I'm stuck conversation. Which is so great. They're lying in bed together, having some sake, watching Japanese TV, and Charlotte just decides to, like, get into it. She's like, deep conversation, here we go. And she tells him, she's like, I'm stuck. And does it get any better? He goes, no. Yes. And like just the immediate, I love every aspect of this scene, and the dialogue is so good, and it's such a good moment shared between the two of them about growth and about, again, where they're both at in life and how they share that. And how Bob is able to kind of guide her a little bit. So many good things about that scene.
I'm going to go ahead and just segue into favorite quotes with that and talk about one of the conversations that they have in that, which they're talking about kids, and Bob says, it gets a whole lot more complicated when you have kids. And Charlotte says, it's scary. Bob says, the most terrifying day of your life is the day the first one is born. Your life as you know it is gone, never to return. But they learn how to walk and they learn how to talk, and you want to be with them. And they turn out to be the most delightful people you will ever meet in your life. I love that one.
It's really great. I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier about the first interaction that they have, which is Charlotte says, "So what are you doing here?" Bob says a couple of things: taking a break from my wife, forgetting my son's birthday, and getting paid $2 million to endorse a whiskey when I could be doing a play somewhere. Oh, but the good news is the whiskey works, and then
cheers.
Like that's the beginning of their friendship.
Yeah, it just immediately
it took was her. So what are you doing here?
Just taking a little joke, little stab, little bit of charisma, and they're off to the races.
And then the next interaction that they have is she is sitting at a table with her husband, Anna Faris's character Kelly, who is just completely obnoxious, and this other man. And Anna Faris is like rambling about juice cleanses and how she oh my gosh, you were bulimic? I never would have known. Like, she's just terrible. And Charlotte sees Bob at the bar, kind of walks over to him after a couple, like, across the restaurant interactions, and he goes, "Can you keep a secret? I'm trying to organize a prison break. I'm looking for, like, an accomplice. We have to first get out of this bar, then the hotel, then the city, and then the country. Are you in or are you out?" Charlotte says, "I'm in. I'll go pack my stuff." Bob says, "I hope you've had enough to drink. It's going to take courage." It's so good.
It's so charming.
Yes.
I wanted to go back to the bed scene real quick, just for one more quote.
Yes.
The more you know who you are and what you want, the less things upset you. Bang. Banger.
Which
spit it out, bro.
We haven't really talked about this at all with Charlotte, but she not only is going through like this marriage crisis, but she's also going through a career crisis.
She's I've been in philosophy for the past 4 years, and I have no idea what to do with it.
Doing the photographer thing that all girls do, and taking pictures of her feet, and
foreshadowing.
Like, she's just lost, and she has no idea. And it's just a beautiful story about two people who are lost.
No idea.
And they have no idea. And I have no idea where I was going with that. But, I just love this movie.
I'm going to rattle off my last two quotes real quick. But
do it.
First one is obviously one that we say all the time. For relaxing times, make it Centauri times. Banger. And
along that same vein, you drink whiskey? One of the directors of the commercial is asking him, "You drink whiskey?" He says, "Do I drink whiskey? As soon as we're done."
He is so good in this. He's so smart and always sad. He always has that like overlooking frown on his face. My favorite quote in this movie is the quote that never happens. It's the unheard, unspoken thing. Thing that happens between Bill Murray and Scarlett at the end of this movie, where he's hugging her and he says something into her ear that you can't make out what it is, and
like you can look into it and there are options of dialogue, but I prefer to just.
That was one thing I was going to say, is that in I don't think it was the remastering process, but it has been discovered what he actually says to her. You don't need to know it to like get what that moment is supposed to be. And I think that is perfect. And for that to be an ad-lib overall, just fantastic
I don't think that him whispering to her was an ad-lib. I think that the kiss was an ad-lib.
I remember seeing like most of that scene
I could be wrong,
in the original script, but you would know far better than I.
A couple more of my favorite quotes are when Bob says to Charlotte that he doesn't want to leave, and she says, "So don't, stay with me here. We'll start a jazz band." Also, let's never come back here again because it would never be as much fun. Yeah. Love that. Yeah. Love that. Like, that just speaks to their time together so strongly. And
I love like the small talk moment that they have in the lobby of the hotel when he's getting ready to leave, where it's just like,
because there's people around and it's tense.
They don't get like the
and
intimate conversation like they've been having throughout the course of the movie.
One more favorite quote from me. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm out.
When they're talking about marriage, Charlotte, it says 25 years. Well, that's impressive. Bob says, "Well, you figure you sleep 1/3 of your life. That knocks out 8 years of marriage right there. So you're down to 16 and change. You're just a teenager at marriage. You can drive it, but there's still the occasional accident."
Good one.
I love that.
It's a good one. Okay, let's move into some fun facts. Now we've talked about a couple of these.
Soundtrack.
Oh, you want to do soundtrack first?
We
I did not make any notes on the soundtrack, so just
okay. I just have a couple notes about and I can tie it into the fun facts. So watch this. So, The songs in the karaoke scene are Brass in the Pocket, parentheses, I'm Special, What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding, and More Than This. All so good.
Really
and
good.
all
really
so
good. Perfectly thematic.
Wonderfully selected. Here's where... Okay, no, hold on. A lot of the music that Sofia used for the soundtrack was stuff that she was just listening to, including the song Too Young by Phoenix, which, friendly reminder, this movie came out in 2003. In 2011, Sofia Coppola married the lead singer of Phoenix.
Wow.
So now we can talk about fun facts.
Moving on to fun facts. Sofia Coppola got married to the lead singer of Phoenix in 2011, whose song was featured in this movie. That was one of my fun facts.
Was it really?
No.
Okay, it was one of mine.
Okay, Giovanni Ribisi accidentally, John, Charlotte's husband, accidentally calls Anna Faris by her real name the first time they meet in the lobby. He's just like, Anna! It's really fun. Just a good little moment.
Which, you kind of mentioned this earlier, but Anna Faris's character
Let's talk about her.
We haven't talked about her enough. She's supposedly...
Sophia has debunked this.
Yes.
But it's completely false.
Supposedly based on Cameron Diaz.
It 100% is based on Cameron Diaz.
If you watch the movie, she is based on Cameron Diaz.
Every interview moment, every moment where she's talking about her career, it is 100% Cameron Diaz.
Talk about Anna. She's so excellent in this movie.
She's really great at just being like the most obnoxious person you've ever met.
When she first meets Charlotte and sees John, they're kind of talking, and then John's like, oh my gosh, I haven't even introduced you. This is Charlotte, my wife. And the way that she says wife is so, like, it's disbelief. It's, like, insulting. It's, like, dismissive. Like, she's just
wife?
She's like, wife? Like, oh. Like, she does such a good job in this role.
And then she's like, talking, she's like, oh, I'm sweating so bad. And like, it's just
she's a pick-me girl.
It's so bad.
She's the biggest pick-me girl.
Oh my God. I absolutely despise it. Okay. Francis Ford Coppola, who is the father of Sofia Coppola and also maker of some great movies and some recently pretty dour ones, urged her to shoot the movie in high-definition video because it's the future. But she chose to film it on film instead because film feels more romantic. I love this note. Because it's like, wow, Francis, are you serious, bro? He was probably just like, oh, I'll make it a little easier for my daughter so she doesn't have to actually physically cut it together. But
this movie is meant for film.
It is 100% meant to be shot on film.
Dreamy and just perfect.
Yeah, and it's
down to the last minute detail.
Pretty funny that Francis Ford Coppola,
I think so too. So this movie came out the same year as The Room. Which had a $6 million budget.
You're tearing me apart, Lisa!
Lost in Translation only had a $4 million budget.
And it grossed $144 million.
Yeah. Killed it.
Bonkers.
Way to go, Sofia.
Yeah, she definitely got the hype train with this one. This I actually didn't even write down, but just something I saw when I was researching this earlier. I can't remember who distributed this, but whoever it was, like, did a total word of mouth campaign, which is something you do not see anymore. No. Period. And there are no, like, oh, this one's pretty good, so you should go see it. And everybody's like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe it is pretty good. I'll go check it out. It's all, like, social media buzz, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Right.
Like, there is nothing like that anymore.
The world doesn't exist. I mean, that world doesn't exist anymore.
That was the Oscar push in 2003. And, 50 to 100 years before that was these people just going out and doing the work and getting the word out there about how good this movie was. And this one pulled it off, and it did the whole race and went to Best Original Screenplay and Best Director and all the other noms for it. And golly, I hate Mystic River. I'm not gonna stop talking about it, but I don't hate it. It is not a bad movie, but it is so, like, unbelievably underwhelming.
Not for me.
Yeah. Okay. Sean Penn, I've got your number, bro. I actually don't. If you do have any phone number that you'd like to send to me, I'll take it.
Did you know Sofia Coppola's primary inspiration for this movie was In the Mood for Love?
Makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
That tracks.
I read that today and I was like, whoa.
Sounds
like I need to rewatch that movie.
The opening shot of Scarlett Johansson is actually influenced by a painting by John Cassere, whose painting shows up later in the hotel. And originally, when Scarlett was shooting this scene, she was really, really nervous about it. And another little tidbit that I'm just going to throw in here. I don't know if she told Sofia that she was over 18, but she's 17 while they're filming this movie, which is a little touchy. But Scarlett was obviously very nervous about doing the opening shot where she's just in her... It's literally like a wide shot of her butt on the bed. So Sofia did the first take herself while wearing the same panties.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I can't believe you didn't know that.
I didn't know that, no.
She was just like, all right, look, this is how you do it.
Get it, Sophia.
Yeah, what a gal.
So they had a lot of, like, difficulty with the locations for this. They maybe didn't get all the permits they should have. There are some shots of Charlotte walking through the streets of Tokyo that were shot from a Starbucks because they weren't allowed to shoot on the street.
A lot of Japanese historical district stuff that they're like, you're not supposed to get permits for those kind of places.
And at the hotel, they had a hard time getting permits for the Park Hyatt, which is why a majority of it's shot at night. I mean, they had to do a lot of working around the staff and stuff like that, and none of them wanted to be included. They also were filming a scene in a restaurant. I'm not sure if it's the sushi restaurant or the hot pot restaurant, but the crew kind of overstayed their welcome trying to get it right, and like the restaurant is like turning off the lights and trying to get them to get out, and they eventually were asked to leave, and the locations manager quit because of it.
Probably a pretty stressful experience as a location manager.
I would probably
They're just like,
cry.
okay, so we're shooting the movie in 2 weeks, and he's like, okay, so what locations are you thinking of? And they're like, oh, the Park Hyatt and downtown Tokyo, and he's like, okay, so where are we in the process? And they're like, process?
Basically.
Yeah, I think that's a blast, and I think it adds to like the eclecticness of this movie. I don't know, that's probably a misuse of that, but it just adds to like the sophomore out of place like aspect of this, where it doesn't feel like an amateur thing, but it feels very distant and just like not necessarily connected, which just runs into the themes of this whole movie. So I just think it's really well shot and really smartly taken care of.
Speaking of themes,
what?
We didn't talk about themes.
Oh, we didn't. I kind of touched on it a little bit with my...
I mean, yeah, basically we've got, like, loneliness, surprise, connection, cultural alienation is another one I had down.
I think one that, like, I got the first time I watched this movie was, like, a little bit of delusion. And just the idea of, like, wow, this will solve everything in my life. And then the recognition that those things come to an end, which also helps you to cope with the idea of delusion as a whole.
Dissatisfaction is a big one. Like, just... people unhappy in their lives.
Not happy with my life.
Yeah, and just coming to terms with what they can do to change it, or coming to terms with the fact that they're not going to change it.
We are stuck in a constant loop, people. All you nihilists out there, tune in.
Entertaining, enlightening, or both?
I did have one more fun fact.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. The idea for Bill Murray's character doing an advertising campaign for Suntory came from Coppola's father, Francis Ford Coppola, and director Akira Kurosawa's Suntory whiskey commercials from the 1970s, which I already mentioned Kurosawa on this. He's one of my favorite directors. I don't think he has a bad piece of work. He's absolutely amazing. I talked about Ikiru a couple of weeks ago. That's one of my favorite movies ever made. I absolutely adore that movie. And then he's got like some of the most epic and influential stuff on media with Seven Samurai and Yojimbo and projects like that. But he's just fantastic. Anyway, turning off the Akira Kurosawa mode, pivoting back to entertaining or lightning. I think this movie is holistically both.
I completely agree.
I think it's enlightening into a mindset. I think that it is very, very much like I said at the immediate top of this. It is a personal story about like how Sofia is dealing with all of the same issues that the characters are dealing with, and I think that really shines in a lot of ways because it's not something that's like morally black or white. It's people that are wandering through their midlife, through their early life, and just trying to figure out what the hell am I supposed to do with myself.
This movie it's very special to me. This is a very personal movie to me. I watched it, like I said, a lot this year. It's helped me through a lot. Like it really, I remember watching it the first time and thinking about it for like a month and just thinking about, like I said, just the dissatisfaction and the loneliness.
Yeah.
And whether or not you're going to do something about it, or whether or not you're going to just stick with it. And
the world does not wait for you, and it is not your oyster.
No, not at all.
And this movie is very much a reflection of that. Just
make your own moves. And I love this movie.
Yeah.
I love this movie.
No, great stuff. So and it is truly entertaining. Like you will not be 100%. Disengaged at any point during this movie. I think it is so fun.
Nice to look at.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's so touching. I say that like, for a lot of movies.
I think it genuinely is a half comedy. Like
yes,
really
it's almost like a rom-com.
Yeah, it does have a lot of those moments. It is far from anything like Matt McConaughey rom-com or 10 Things I Hate About You and all that kind of stuff.
We're looking at more like a 500 Days of Summer rom-com.
It is so self-reflective and like very deep into a psychological idea of what romance is and what platonicism is, and I really do like it. I think it is authentically one of the better movies that has come out in the past 30 years. I think it's one of the best scripts of the past 30 years. I think that it is Sofia's best movie by a long shot.
She uses
Virgin Suicide stands, raise your hands, but I really think this one is absolutely her masterpiece.
She uses her time with the dialogue so well.
Oh, absolutely.
So well. Like, there is not a line to be cut from this movie.
Mm-hmm. No, it is all...
Oh my gosh, we haven't talked about the lounge singer.
Oh, yeah.
We have to talk about the lounge singer. So at the Park Hyatt, there's this lounge singer, and she's singing every night when they're at the bar. She's always there. And they didn't even hire somebody, like, to do that. She was just that was her job. She was a singer at the Park Hyatt, and she got included in the film and got credited, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Congratulations. That was probably a high point of her career.
Oh my gosh.
Outside
Amazing.
of Japan, anyway.
I would cry.
Okay. Let's wrap this up. I really, really love this movie, and I think it's a fantastic one. I give it a 9 out of 10. I think it is a almost like perfect movie, and the metrics by which I judge that by are very personal, and personally, like, this movie doesn't affect me nearly as much as it affects a lot of other people, but I still like recognize and praise the value of the way it's able to affect people.
If this movie hadn't, and going off of that, if this movie hadn't affected me in such a way, I probably would have it at a 9 out of 10, but it's a 10 out of 10 for me.
It's an Emily Core movie if there ever was one.
I adore this movie. Tattoo it on my brain, please.
It's fantastic stuff. So let's run through some double feature options. Now, you said you had looked at my notes. I hope you didn't spoil my double feature options.
I didn't look at your notes.
Okay.
I didn't look that far in your notes.
My double feature choice is Marriage Story.
Ooh.
Have a night of I want to blow my brains out.
That's
and double
tough.
Feature Lost in Translation with Marriage Story.
That's really tough. Okay.
You're going to damage yourself if you do this.
Okay, I have obvious pick. This is a really fun double feature. Her. Because you're seeing Sofia Coppola dealing with her divorce with Spike Jonze, and then Spike Jonze years later is like, here's how I feel about it.
Well, I'm pretty sad about it too, honey.
Another one that I have down is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good fit.
I think that
very close in proximity to each other.
Again, another movie that is kind of rom-com-y, but
just sad.
Just sad.
Just heartbreaking.
Just more tears.
Yeah. Okay, if you liked that, you'll like this. First one I had down was The Worst Person in the World.
Very good pick. That's a great movie. I have Frances Ha.
Very coinciding themes. Frances Ha is a good one too. Another great female director of the 20s or the 2000s into the 2020s. Greta Gerwig.
Also, I mean, just any Sofia Coppola, Virgin Suicides, definitely. Beguiled. Marie Antoinette I adore. Priscilla is great.
One last one, I think, aside from Marriage Story, I mean, obviously directed by a male director, but this is the other one directed by a male director that I had to recommend, and it's Linklater's Sunrise Trilogy. I think that fits really well into
yes, and that's more of a positive side than this, but also follows very similar themes of that brief moment that people share together.
I messed it up and I said it's the Sunrise trilogy. It's the Before trilogy.
It is the Before trilogy. It's Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight.
Yeah, very, very good movies. They follow the same couple over several different years of their life, and much attuned to Linklater's like mantra with these kind of things, where he does, Boyhood, which follows this one kid filmed over the course of 14 years or something like that.
Just to kind of briefly touch about how well these movies work together, that couple that it follows, they meet on a train on their way to Vienna, and they share like this 24-hour period, maybe 48-hour period with each other, and then they agree to meet like 6 months later, and then the next movie is 9 years later when they haven't met, and it's just very similar. Really good stuff. Like I said, brief moment in time, ships passing in the night, great stuff.
Yeah, it's really just that spark of humanity that brings us all together. Okay, well.
Yeah.
I guess we're wrapping this up. People.
Let's talk a little bit about what we got going on here, Zachy.
We're going to be a little busy this weekend. I do not think we will be doing a weekend roundup this weekend. There may be like some post-it notes at best.
We might do like a half weekly highlight, half roundup next week.
I think we're going to be flying out to Washington State this weekend, and it's going to be a pretty quick turnaround. But we're doing it for a friend of ours' wedding, who we're very excited to go see. Dexter, if you're listening, love you, bro. But we're gonna fly out to Washington, fly back. We'll be back on Monday, late in the evening. Try to recover from some jet lag pretty quickly, but we should be able to get an episode recorded on Wednesday.
But I did want to propose this for our next highlight. I kind of want to throw out some bad movie options.
I think so. I think
some notoriously bad movies. I'd love to do that.
We already talked about Tommy Wiseau's The Room. It would be a fun one to knock out. I want to do some stuff that we don't necessarily like. Like I want to do a weekly highlight on something where I can just rag on it for an hour.
Yes, not that I'm sick of saying I love this movie so much. Let's
diversify our portfolio.
But I want to switch it up a little bit. I want to talk a little crap.
Yeah, we will definitely be coming up with some ideas. So if you guys have any big ideas that you want to throw at us, we are open to them.
This is the worst movie I've ever seen.
We've got some stuff that we're going to need to pre-record. Emily's also going to be out of town next weekend, so I will probably be doing a roundup on my own the following weekend from this weekend.
I'll try to get you some voice notes. I'm hoping to see a couple things over the next available time that I have.
Yeah, we've got Y2K is coming out this weekend. A24's Y2K. That's one of them that I'm definitely interested in checking out. What was the other one? There's like Lord of the Rings: War of the Rohirrim, which is a full-length anime film on the Lord of the Rings Rohirrim, which I am not particularly enthusiastic to check out, but you never know. It could break the mold and just be like something absolutely unbelievable.
I'm kind of down.
I've got my animated property under the belt for this year, and that's Arcane. Plot holes and issues though it may have, I think it is the best animated property to come out in several years. But anyway, we're just gonna cruise along through this weekend, and you guys hang on. We'll be back. Don't worry. We'll get back on our consistent schedule soon enough. But as we're moving through the month of December, thank you for listening. Thank you for being patient with us as we're getting.
We'll bring you some Christmas content soon.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna do like a top 5 Christmas movies at some point. Die Hard will be on that list because that is a Christmas movie, and I'm glad that I can go ahead and voice my opinion about that. Yeah. We're going to have some fun over the next couple of weeks. So we'll see you when the time comes around to it. In the meantime, stay safe, stay warm. It's dropping into the 20s here in Tennessee, and we're begging for those days of the 60s and 70s back. So
bundle up, boys.
Get your parkas out and stay warm. Get you some apple cider, maybe throw a little bit of Jim Beam in there or something. And get crazy with it. But in the meantime, I hope you guys have a safe, warm rest of your week, and we will see you on the other side.
Stay blessed.
God bless you. Bye.
Bye.